Welcome to Agents of Aquarius, episode 13. I am one of your hosts. My name is Jim Pine.
The other being me, Matty D. Welcome, welcome. Happy to be here.
Matty D's locked in a security bunker in the state of Montana,
Hey, it's not
300 feet
Montana. It's
below
too
the ground.
cold.
Not 300 feet below the ground, my friend, in your bunker.
Below ground in the bunker is where I choose to dwell.
Here we are today. Today is November. It won't come out today. It won't even come out tomorrow. Who
No,
knows?
but in
Caroline will drop
date.
this at one point, but today though is while we record this, November 22nd, 2023, and 60 years ago today, on 11/22/1963, the president was assassinated. So 60 years ago today, shots rang across Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas, as the babushka lady and her handler sat and watched.
Ooh, man, going deep right off the bat. It is an important day, though. It is an important day. 60 years today. There's no way we can't not talk about this, and I'm glad we are because, goddamn, yeah, the president was assassinated, but by rogue elements within our own government is the fair way to say it. Not your average run-of-the-mill government lackey or employee, but it was us that did that one.
It was but it wasn't Colonel Mustard in the book depository with the candlestick. I can tell you that. No, with the Brishnikov. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We don't, to this day, we don't know who it was. Hasn't been released. There was a commission called the Warren Commission. There was a video released on a show in like 1978 or 1 or something. It's like 10 years later, you get the Zapruder film.
Mm-hmm.
The commission says it was just a single shooter in the book depository. We now know the babushka lady was not Evelyn Rothschild, because that's a guy. It's a lady Rothschild that was there to watch.
Yeah, who happened to be in Dealey Plaza that
She
day
was
just
there
to see
watching.
the press.
Well, the reports were that it was so interesting when evidence was studied how everybody scrambled, but this one lady just stood and watched. The babushka lady just stood and watched, like she
And
knew
she's a
what was
Rothschild.
happening. She was a Rothschild.
Yeah, and she didn't need to go to Dallas to see the president. She could have got an invite to the White House through her own connections if she had wanted to. The fact that she was there and the fact that she was stone cold watching that thing go down and didn't flinch and didn't run like everyone else, that's pretty incriminating. And hey, bro, let's just get right out in the open. This was an inside job. If you don't know that the Kennedy assassination was an inside job, you got to get your head out of your ass and start believing everything that you're spoon fed. That guy, Kennedy, he was pushing up against the CIA. He was pushing up against the central bank, the Federal Reserve. He was pushing up against all kinds of stuff that the power establishment in this country wanted to keep perpetuating, and he was pushing back against it. It was absolutely an inside job. The Warren Commission is a bunch of horse shit. I mean, shit, the people who were on the Warren Commission were people who had a beef with Kennedy. The very fact that they stocked it up full of people who hated the man is in and of itself crazy.
Yeah, he wasn't allowing us to take a peacekeeping mission in Southern Asia and turn it into a full-blown war to stop communism. He said, no, we're not doing that.
Pushing against the military-industrial complex.
And in the famous words of John F. Kennedy, that little yellow man never did nothing to me. Wait, that was Muhammad Ali. But
well, Muhammad was spot on, though. You know, what the fuck does he want to go fight the Vietnamese for? They never did anything to him. They had no ability to affect his life.
They stymied the uprising of to head where we envision now, where we'd like to be as a nation. They stymied that. And I was talking to somebody last night actually about this, and it was like, think how powerful that was, that there was a gentleman that had an incredible living, and he was the champion of the world, heavyweight champion of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And he stopped and gave up his fucking freedom because he said, I ain't gonna go do nothing to them. They didn't do nothing to me. I ain't going to go kill people in
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam. That was the temperature that was happening, not promoting war. It was, we were at that moment where like people didn't want it. They were like, no, this is the wrong way to go. And then that was the Central Intelligence Agency changed all that with Project Monarch, and they really tried to manipulate and control. But it started with the killing of the king, dude, killing of the fucking president. Because
I think so too. Because
he said, I'm
before,
not war. That's the military industrial complex. He was like, no. And then he's like, I will shatter the intelligence agencies into 1,000 pieces. That was 1 month before he has that speech, before he dies.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you want to look at real power in this country, look at the military industrial complex, the intelligence agencies, and the big banks. Like that's where it's all at. And they work in a specific order too, because this country is run on money. You know, money is power, money makes the world go round, money does everything. But there comes a point where someone's going to get a bullet in the head because they're pushing back against that money and they're not allowing that money to exert its control. And then the third step in the process, and it's always the same, is that's when the armies come out and they bomb the shit out of whoever is preventing that first power piece to do its work. They run this country through the bank, they run the world through banks. And then the intelligence agencies are next, and they're allied with criminal underground enterprises. And then waiting in the wings, you have these massive militaries. There's your power structure. That's them.
And they use it for evil. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
Chuck, well, we already discussed it on an earlier podcast. Chuck Schumer specifically
Mm-hmm.
threatened Donald Trump with, you know, the line of they have 6 ways to Sunday to, you know, to get you back.
Yeah.
I was speaking about Trump had pissed off, not those, that wasn't words. Trump had upset the intelligence agencies with what he was doing and what he was threatening to do. And then he said they have 6 ways to Sunday to get you back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing one of the ways to Sunday is Dealey Plaza with the Barishnikov.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. And then
that's
you,
crazy. I mean, that's now that happening, right? Chuck Schumer says that about a fucking president right
mm-hmm.
now. And then it's like he's just forgetting, like, you're not supposed to say the intelligence agencies can get anybody back. But it's
No, it's
so
a classic
open
gaffe.
knowledge. Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
so well, it's also so mainstream knowledge now that to know you don't want to piss off the CIA or the
Mm-hmm.
FBI or the NSA or whatever other lettered, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get caught breaking the law because the Department of Justice will come down upon you fiercely
Mm-hmm.
unless you're powerful and connected to this they.
Yeah. You know, maybe Chuck did that gaffe on purpose because what people have learned now is those 6 ways to Sunday that the intelligence agencies can get you is through dropping news stories, is through bullshit prosecutions for, you know, half crimes or whatever. Maybe it's a way of saying, oh, no, we don't kill presidents. That's not us. We just reveal a couple little embarrassing secrets like a P tape. You know, it could be that
But that's one way to
depth of
Sunday.
ingenuity. But at the same time, it's just as, yeah, it's one way to say it. At the same time, it's probably just a gaffe. And the guy said what he wasn't supposed to say. And
I don't think it matters.
well, no one gives a shit except people
Epstein
like
didn't
us.
kill himself, but everybody knows. Like, not every. I shouldn't say everybody knows. Everybody doesn't know, but he can say it out loud. We won't get caught up if it's a gaffe or not. We'll never know if it was a gaffe or it wasn't a gaffe. But it doesn't matter because you can say that shit now. They've burned cities down because of a guy died of a fentanyl overdose, but they said instead it was something else. But the coroner is definitely like, no, he didn't die. He died of a drug overdose. And the burning of the cities was fine, but if you went out and just protested, you couldn't do that. Like, they've got us right now. They've got the population, the NPCs, the cheap, the fucking whatever you want to call it, the mindless, the non-authority. They've got them. They're puppet strings, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are starting to see the error of their ways. You know, I'm like tripping out to my to a friend, and I'm like, this week, I'm like, dude, you seen all the J6 tapes out? And he's like, nah, what do you what? And I'm like, oh, they're releasing all the videos from J6. Like, you can see how ridiculous it was. And he's like, Yeah, and he's like saying, I was like, no, dude, like you were telling me that that was like really bothered you, that the people did that, and that the people showed up to voice their word of displeasure with the government, and you were like, that's just wrong. They crossed the line. I was like, no, they got you, and he's like, yeah, I guess they did, and then that was
Well,
it. But that was it.
I've had fools in my life who were telling me that it was an insurrection, that it was trying to overthrow the government, and I was clowning them. I'm like, so these assholes larping in the congressional halls who had no organization and no guns, no nothing. I'm like, you're telling me that they're by showing up with no guns and no plan that they're going to take over the government? As like, what if the police decide to kick them out, which they did? What if the army decided to show up, which they didn't need to? And these guys are like, yeah, it was still an insurrection. And then now, like you said, you see the tapes of this bullshit. And it's like all you see is cops leading people into the building. They let them in. And I had to tell one of my precious little asshole idiot friends that that it wasn't an insurrection. And I asked him, like, didn't you see the video of the cops letting people in? And he just wouldn't answer the question. He just wouldn't answer it. Like they just that the people who believe everything do their best to hold on to those beliefs. And as soon as you start to question them, they just back away and dodge and divert attention because they just want to hold that belief so hard. It's like you've been told what to think about this thing, and it got your blood boiling, and it excites you to think that all these Trump people tried to overthrow our government. Now they're going to get thrown in jail. It's like, great, that's your little fantasy plot, and and they just don't want to let it go.
It wasn't insurrection anyway. What it was people doing what's in, I believe, the Bill of Rights. We're allowed to redress the government for our grievances.
Most definitely.
Yeah, that's all that was happening there. It's just our right to redress our government for grievances. And if we cannot redress the government and tell them that there's problems and we're not happy, then that's not our government. That's something else. That's a different entity. Because
No, it's
our
like that.
government, we're allowed to do that.
Right. It's like the crazy shit that they prosecuted Trump for questioning the election. It's like, no, everyone questions the election. That's you're allowed to do that. But they spun it in such a way that they turned it into a conspiracy, and conspiracies can be criminal acts. And and people were okay with it. It's like, I didn't vote for Trump. I don't plan on voting for Trump. If Trump turns out to be like this mythical savior that all the Trump people say he is, I'm on the wrong side of that one because I say fuck that guy. I think he's just another tool for the ruling class, and he's doing a great job.
He
But
did a lot of things I like. I'm not pro or anti. I'm sick of all that bullshit.
right, right. But the
Point.
the point is the motherfucking guy. Excuse me. I'm sorry to be so foul mouthed all the time. The guy questioned the election results and he got prosecuted in court for it. That one might even still be going on. I don't follow it that carefully.
I think you could say motherfucking guy.
Yeah, motherfucking guy. But you know what? That motherfucking girl, Hillary Clinton, for 4 years had to listen to that disgusting human being just say, like, Russia stole our election, this a rigged election, an illegitimate president, illegitimate. It's like, bro, you're saying for 4 years straight the same shit that you're prosecuting the other guy for now. And the
Yeah.
hypocrisy is so deep, it makes me nuts. But you know what helps? What helps is I remind myself that these are just two groups working for the same ruling class. They're just the same. They're the same thing.
There's something interesting there though, because we can see as observers, right? You and I
Yeah.
aren't this, we're not that, we're not right, we're not
I don't
left,
have a horse in this shit.
we're trying to be observers over all of it because that's part of our spiritual journey. We're learning, and then that all bleeds into the other category. So like with Trump, for instance, okay. See, it's not about him to me. It's the way I'm watching him be treated.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me go, well, they definitely don't want him in there. Like
No,
they don't do this to their people. Like, and I'm not saying he's some other,
no, they don't. You're right about that.
and just because I'm saying one thing here doesn't mean it's the anti of that. We've been all locked into this. So I'm not saying he's the white knight. I'm saying I'm drawn towards him a little bit because of the way he's being treated. I'm like, I know how they operate. They don't prosecute their own.
No,
They hide
Never.
it. Even if they're pedophiles, they hide it. Like
Yeah.
they hide everything.
Yeah.
And this can just go on and on and on. Franklin scandal, it just it never ends. But the way they're treating him just has me like side of the eye, like I'm looking out the corner of my eye at this, like, okay, I'm watching this. I'm curious to what all this means, you know.
Well, Sam Tripoli had a really cool thing to say about Trump, and he was like, the Biden Democratic crowd, they're, they just serve this globalist agenda of big international money. And he's like, Trump's just a different kind of crook. He serves a different money interest. He's more of a local kind of um working for the local oligarchy as opposed to this international oligarchy. And that's why he says they don't like him so much. But it makes sense to me. It kind of rings true. It's like, yeah, he's not an ideal globalist, but he's still a fucking like he's not working in the interest of American people, is what I think. But he's not working for the interest of the of the globalists either, which by all rights makes him better than anything else out there.
And I don't like that we have to go towards that. All I like, yeah. Well, you know what? I don't want to. This isn't about him. This isn't about him.
No, this is about
He did things for America that were definitely not the way we've been heading, and I like that. But whatever.
yeah, I agree with that.
It
There are
doesn't
things he
matter.
did I
That's a
like.
different. We could do a whole different podcast about this.
Yeah,
But
but we do have a different president we have been talking about.
but okay, yeah. But the thing, okay, how about this? The things that Donald Trump has done or was doing is
Mm-hmm.
a bit reminiscent of what JFK was doing. Because we just
Pushing
said,
back against the machine.
yeah, like Chuck Schumer literally tells him, like, the intelligence agency, you're pissing them off. Like, you're not, as
Yeah,
president, that's not supposed to be happening, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
And because they're an out of control underground government of their own. Like, they're whoever it is. I'm not just saying CIA, whoever the bad operators are in all of those agencies and in our government.
I really think agencies like the CIA are part of that 3-point tripod
Mhm.
of banks, intelligence, and military.
Yeah, intelligence is part of the military. So it's banks, military, and then what?
No,
Religion?
no,
I
I
don't
just see
know.
banks and
Yeah.
intelligence agencies and military, like
Yeah.
the army. Like I know the army's got their own department of intelligence or whatever.
Banking does too. You're right. I get it now. I
But
understand.
I just see those three as being the main legs of the tripod: the banking industry, the intelligence agencies, and the military industrial complex.
Like in every James Bond movie, they always have a name for the organization. What do we want to call them, Matt?
Ooh,
Can't do triad. That's already been taken.
yeah.
Uh
Banks, intelligence, and military. That's dumb. BIM. The
yeah.
BIM. Yeah, right.
MIB.
MIB.
But it is
Also dumb.
IB it
Men
is
in Black.
it is IBM though.
IBM, MIB, Men in Black.
I was sitting
Well,
there
I
trying
mean,
to
but think about what we're talking about, though. It's like you had this president 60 years ago. He's pushing up against the banks because he was. I mean, they were putting out government money, and it was in circulation with Federal Reserve money. And when you start messing with the Federal Reserve, like all we have in circulation now are Federal Reserve currency notes, and I won't get too much into this because I'm not too educated on it, but during the Kennedy administration, they were putting out U.S. government banknotes.
silverbacks.
Something like silver-backed
Silverbacks.
currency.
They were called silverbacks because they were
They were
silverback currencies.
they were called silver. Okay, good.
I
Thank you
have
for adding
one.
that in.
I have one.
So do you know? Nice.
Keep going. Yeah.
All right, so he's pushing against the banking system, which is one of the three main arms of control over our societies. He directly threatened to dismantle the intelligence agencies. He fired that hideous human being, Dulles, whatever his name is, who was the head of the CIA. He fired that guy after the Bay of Pigs affair. He pushed up against intelligence hard. And then he told the military industrial complex, you're not going to get your war in Southeast Asia. So what happens? One arm of that tripod comes forward.
Triform.
One leg of that triform comes forward and they blow his head off. But think about this for a minute. look at the history of modern warfare and see in the lead up to the modern wars, how many of the countries involved in those wars either didn't have a central bank or they got rid of their central bank. Because right now, countries that don't have central banks that are tied into the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, that whole system of world banking,
Name them.
Iran, North Korea. I don't
Africa.
I don't know if Russia's one of those countries. They probably are, but just look
Africa
at
also
where in
did.
Africa.
Different parts. There's parts of Africa they refuse. They're the ones that are like standing up to it all.
Yeah, look on your phone real quick while I'm talking and ask your phone how many what countries don't have central banks, because Libya didn't have a central bank, and they took it a step farther where they made their own currency backed by gold called the dinar that countries in Africa were going to be able to do trade in, and it was cutting out the US dollar. And they didn't have a central bank, and guess what? We bombed the shit out of them in 2011. We destroyed that country. And comically, our media called it a humanitarian effort to free the country from a dictator. And they destroyed it, turned it into a country run by warlords and has open air slave markets currently, as if that's somehow a better option to what was there, which happened to be the highest quality of living of all African countries in its day before we destroyed it. But the point is, the point I'm trying to make very long is that countries without central banks that are tied into the world financial system are targeted by the militaries of the United States and Britain and NATO and all those other Western countries.
I have it here.
Talk to me.
This is from wikimedia.org.
Wikimedia.
Wikimedia.org.
Okay. So already it's more trustworthy than the other fucking rag.
Oh, you mean the intelligence agencies
Mm-hmm.
encyclopedia? The 6 remaining countries without banks owned by the Rothschild family. That's how they described it. So
that's on them. That's on them.
They're pretty cool for describing it like that. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, what?
Abkhazia.
Azerbaijan?
It's Abkhazia.
I don't know that country. That's kind of weird. I don't know that country. I feel good at geography, but you got me.
I thought it was Abkhazan too, but maybe that's how you say Abkhazia.
Okay.
Cuba.
Good one. Nice.
Iran.
Uh-huh.
North Korea.
Boom.
Russia.
Who?
Russia.
Russia. So yes. Now, all right. Spell that first country for me again, please.
Bolivia.
Oh, wait. Bolivia doesn't have a central bank?
And Syria.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
This is, whoa. This was made in May of 2018. So some of these have fallen, actually. Let's take that back. This is bad information. I'm sorry, everybody.
No, Syria has not fallen. We just occupy the third of that nation that has the gas and the food. Illegally occupy, the United States does. But look at that list. Look at that list. Russia, North Korea, Syria, Iran, Cuba, and some country I can't fucking Bolivia is another one on the list, but and that other country I can't even name. Like these like most horrible of all places. This is how the game works. They make these countries,
wait a second,
who don't have central banks the worst adversaries of all. And the American propaganda machine just spins and spins and spins its webs. And all we, like Iran's a theocracy and it fucking sucks to live there in a lot of ways, but it's only a theocracy because we overthrew the democratically elected government. Like our Central Intelligence Agency did that, and you can be sure it was at the behest of the bankers, and it worked for a while. It worked for a while once. We installed the Shah of Iran. I forget his name, but it took until 1979 for the Islamic Revolution, where it took a bunch of extremists who were doing extreme shit, who were really extreme in their fucking mode and in their in their actions to take that country back, because you had to be extreme if you're going to defeat a US backed puppet government. And is it any surprise to anyone when you look back at it in that context that Iran has an extremist Islamist government? Of course they do, because those are the only people that could take the country back from the United States.
I can't find good, accurate information. I'm reading now that it was the 7 countries that we
Uh-huh.
listed. I want to see if the Abkhazia was in there. No, it's not. Sudan.
Are
Maybe
you
that's
talking
a
about
different.
the 7 countries in 5 years that
Yeah.
Wesley Clark spoke of?
But they also didn't have the bank. And now it's looking like it's Cuba, North Korea, and Iran are the only ones left.
Hmm.
But that's not right because they own. Dude, I can't. This is really hard to find. I'm telling you on Google right now.
Surprising no one here.
I have no. Well, whatever. Once again, this whole podcast isn't about that.
Look, even if it was
That
just those
specific
3,
part.
but I guess the point I was making was these countries who stand up to this banking system are either going to have to deal with a CIA coup or a military invasion by the US. That's what it always comes down to, except we can't always just invade, North Korea, because they'll flatten Seoul. So the cost is too high in some cases. But these countries are adversaries of the power structure of the world. That tripod of those 3 things. And those 3 things act out in different ways. The banks will sanction you, the intelligence agencies will coup you, and the military will destroy you. So you stand up
Why
to
is
them and you got
why is
problems.
and then like why is banking so powerful? Why does it mean so much, right? And especially now,
Well,
because now they just make the money up. Before they
yeah.
would like have it backed by something, but they would collect all of that something. So then they were like the powerful ones and they could lend it. But why is
Mhm.
banking that's like oh like are they
Ultimately,
doing
because
something
people are
wrong?
honest, I think.
Well,
I think ultimately because people are honest, they enter into an agreement, then the agreement turns south for them, and that turns into a state of excessive usury, and they still feel obliged to pay back because, in general, I think people are decent humans. But
yeah, until you
banking, banking is the subtle hand of control, followed by the other 2. It's the first tool to get control of a nation. You do it through the currency manipulation. You do it through what industries are funded in a particular nation. You decide who gets credit to build industry. And that crap about interest rates is takes second fiddle to who gets money to develop industry. That's where the real power is when you decide what industries get to develop or not. And banking is the first line of control,
and
and it just works.
like what is I'm asking you questions I already know, but I'm just like I want it all laid out. Uh and like what is the centralized bank? That sounds like okay, just a bank. Like what's wrong with that? And the thing is, all of these nations that have centralized banks aren't in charge of their money.
Mm-hmm.
They make it seem that they are, but they aren't. There's an outside influence that is the one in control of the money. In the United States of America, it's the Rothschild run Federal Reserve. The
Mm-hmm.
Federal Reserve is not a federal agency. The Federal Reserve the people do not vote. The
It's a
government has
private
no
bank.
control over. They cannot be audited. And they're the ones in charge of the money to be given to this country. They get to make money on just giving this country money when this country could easily have just done it itself.
It did
And
for
did. Yes.
decades and decades and hundreds of years, or 100 years combined, or whatever it was. It did.
When the Civil War bankrupted the country, and that kind of gave way for eventually for these banks to start coming and taking advantage of the country.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you just have to go through hard times, and instead they sold their soul. They sold the soul of the country, being that they had people that were going to now were beholden to, where that it's
Beholden to, yeah.
literally crazy. I think that and the Kennedy thing were the 2 things that sparked me. That and all the lies that I knew were just lies. Like I was like, why do you do Santa? And now I understand. Now I understand like why they do Santa. It's because they will eventually want to take God away from you too. because it's like that whole thing, like you believe, you believe, you believe. Oh, it was a lie. So that eventually God can be taken away. That's what I believe. The
Mm.
whole myth of Santa Claus, all of that is all done to like a MK Ultra programming that eventually you'll be like, well, I can't. That's why do you think we have so many fucking atheists now?
That
People,
makes
they're
sense,
like,
bro.
their belief system is there is no thing. It's like, how do you know that? Like, you don't know that any more than a Christian knows whatever they know. Like,
It's a stance of faith for sure.
yeah, but I think Santa was done to break all of our psyches to eventually you'd be like, wow, I can't see God. You know what I mean? You'd lose that like feeling. Like you can feel Santa when you believe in him.
That's so sad and dark at the same time. It's like, I'm sorry, your Santa Claus isn't just a myth to make you happy at Christmas time. It's to break your soul. It's
So you'll
it's rough,
eventually
bro.
not believe in God. I
Yeah,
mean, I've heard
yeah.
the theory. Sam Tripoli talks about it. I had already had that before I even knew Sam
You've
was.
had that theory for decades
But I
because
didn't have.
the Santa myth broke your heart. I know it
Oh,
did. As the person who knows you well, I could say the Santa
bro,
myth broke your heart.
that was my first. That was like I think one of my biggest traumas in like my childhood was the Santa thing.
It's just crazy. Like I remember when it clicked for me that Santa's not real, I just didn't want to look dumb. I was like, yeah, of course Santa's not real. I didn't.
Bro,
Yeah, I don't want to look dumb.
I looked
You had a way
so
different
dumb.
experience.
I looked so dumb, dude. I was the kid way too old, fucking losing it, dude. Without the kids in line. I was like,
I mean, I was probably
oh, I lost it in
like
public,
I was
bro. I
probably
wasn't
nine
even at
years old.
home. I
I was
wasn't even
probably
at
9 years old,
home.
but you were online at the
I was 11 at a hand store in Ship Bottom, dude.
right,
Wait,
and it was your uncle who was Santa or
yeah, go
some shit
wait,
like that,
sit
dressed
on
up.
Uncle Carl's lap, dude.
Yeah,
Flew in on a helicopter.
but it's a
Oh,
literal true story there.
what
Uncle Carl did
happened?
fly it on a helicopter dressed as Santa, went to the Hands department store,
Yeah,
and you, his nephew, was put in line to go sit in Santa's lap, and you're like, this is a lie. And you lost your shit,
grandnephew,
didn't you?
grandnephew too. This is my
Grandnephew,
mom's uncle.
your mom's uncle. But
Yeah,
you lost your
yeah,
shit
yeah.
though that day, didn't you?
Oh, bro, I cried. I was like, my grandmother, mom, were like, whoa. I don't remember who
Holy
else was
shit.
there. There was probably like my aunt Jean, maybe was there. I don't remember who was there, but I think it was my mom and my grandma.
The spell was broken.
The spell was
But
broken,
that
and
was
then
the
I
day.
stopped believing in God. I didn't really know if I really, but yeah, I'm telling you now, this is my newest. It's so that they can take God away from you too. It's easier
Nice,
to
that's
take
deep.
away.
But you know that was the day that your belief in magic died.
Yep. Well,
And
yeah,
that lasted probably for a decade or more.
more. Yeah, about 12, 13 years after that. I mean, I played D&D,
Yeah.
which kept the magic alive.
Thank God for
Um,
that. That's such a great game.
thank God for that, literally. And but yeah, I mean, that was the real magic, bro. That's why I had to play. Thank God I had D&D because that
Uh-huh.
gave me the okay, well, I can still pretend I can do this like imaginary thing. And then eventually I started to learn like, oh wait, psychic abilities. What do you think? That's just some fucking, like that's just some no, this is like part of our consciousness that bleeds through into this third dimensional realm. And then, then to this day, it's like now I can just look at the wonder and beauty and be like, whoa, this is so magical. This place, literally everything about this fucking place is magic. Like the atoms could hold form together because our thoughts and like everything you can see around you is held there because of your thoughts and your perception and your reality that they're all there in that form at this moment in time.
Man, full circle, bro. That's great. That's great.
I don't know where that
John
came.
Kennedy, Santa Claus.
Oh, well, that's as deeply as it hurt me that Santa wasn't real is as deeply as I'm how passionately I feel, how deeply I feel about how magical this place is now. Like you can't take this away from me. Nope.
That's great.
I refuse. I will not give up my authority to understand this, how magical this realm really is.
Beautiful, man. So we did bring up the topic of John Kennedy, and we went to all kinds of places with that conversation, as we should, because that was some rich talk right there. But you know what time it is, though? It's time to change it up.
Break the news.
Dun dun dun.
All right, here we go. Here's one from Google News that is given to me by an algorithm. NBC 7 San Diego. Leaders of the San Diego Tijuana based cartel linked to DEA's strongest fentanyl ever tested, extradited to the US. They don't write USA anymore. They write US. How interesting. Okay, this was on
Hey,
November
now that
20th.
didn't say the cartels linked to the DEA. It said their fentanyl was
Producer.
tested by the DEA.
It's, he's they said leader of the San Diego Tijuana based cartel.
Uh-huh.
So this guy is part of the San Diego Tijuana cartel,
Yeah.
and he was caught, extradited to the United States.
Okay, so he's not
And
tied to
it's
the DEA.
no,
Just his.
he's tied to the fentanyl, the strongest fentanyl ever tested by the
Yeah,
DEA.
because you need that to be stronger. Jesus Christ.
So
What's
that
the
was just a
point?
headline. That was
What's the
just a
point in
headline
making that stronger? It's already so strong you got to cut it 1,000 times.
to get us back for the opium wars, Matt. Wait until
It,
you
it
get this
could
to
be
his
revenge
name.
for the opium wars. That's true.
Wait until you hear his name. A man described by prosecutors as the leader of a San Diego based Tijuana drug trafficking organization has been extradited to the United States to face federal charges. The U.S. Attorney's Office has announced this Tuesday. Aaron Lieb Kobasher, 34, was arrested in Spain earlier this year and brought to San Diego on Monday, where he's facing allegations of trafficking methamphetamine, fentanyl, and cocaine.
Why do I have a hard time thinking a 34-year-old guy could run a big organization and not someone with
He,
more experience?
well, it sounds like he's, according to prosecutors, Kobasher's organization is linked to the June 2021 seizure of powdered fentanyl that was the most concentrated powdered fentanyl ever tested in the DA's history. The U.S. office says Kobasher coordinated the smuggling of the drugs from Mexico into San Diego for distribution. He fled to Mexico. He was headed back to Mexico. That's where they arrested him. And that's it. So this guy, they're making it in Mexico. They send the product to make the fentanyl, comes from China. It's shipped in. Chinese scientists can't come over. They're teaching people how to make it. I'm not, this guy's, I don't know if he's a chemist making it, but his organization got caught with it. And but it's just so, we got him. But we know how bogus all this is.
Yeah, because he's probably, they're probably just eliminating some of the competition.
Yeah, or he pissed off the DEA, or he got, he had something. It's like, who knows? It's so dirty, bro. And it goes all the way back to the crack. People think crack cocaine. If you think that was just like a organic movement that just started, no, they needed to do something with all this cocaine they were getting. And they were shipping it. Our people that work for our government, CIA pilots and things of that nature, were flying guns down to Nicaragua.
Yeah. Nicaragua was the that was the Sandinistas. That was the
Well, this goes into the Iran Contra, like, because they
the
needed
Iran
money.
Contra. Thank you. I
Yeah,
was
they
trying to
needed
remember.
money. So then they take the money, then they would get cocaine, and then they take that money from the cocaine, then they could use that illegally to fund the Iran Contra affair.
Yeah, I think they were taking cocaine from Nicaragua, putting it on the LA and US markets, taking the profits, going to Iran and buying guns, and then shipping the guns back to Nicaragua to arm the revolution against the socialist government that the people legally elected.
But that's the kind of thing we're talking about. Like, this guy, we got this cartel guy, we're doing the war on drugs. And it's like, just shut up.
Exactly.
Shut up. No, you're not.
Now, yeah, think about this. It's like, look, the Iran Contra scandal and the reporting of Gary Webb, who will repeat once again that he committed suicide by shooting himself in the head twice. We pretty much know that the CIA was running drugs into this country. Barry Seal, the pilot, they make movies about him with Tom Cruise, to fund an insurrection against the elected socialist government in Nicaragua. Like, this is all a thing. The CIA was running that show. And I'm supposed to believe that our intelligence agencies, faced with a crisis that kills 100,000 people a year minimum, can't figure out how to stop the flow of drugs into this country. They're facilitating it. They always have. That's what the French connection was, where they were bringing heroin out of the Golden Triangle in Southeast Asia, and it was funding their dirty network of intelligence operations and coups and shit like that. And then it's cocaine out of Nicaragua, and then it's cocaine out of every other South American and Central American country. The intelligence agencies fund themselves with the drug trade. It's been going on forever. It's been exposed forever. And since it doesn't get broadcast by the mainstream media or the government mouthpieces that work for globalists, the people of this world and countries like ours, they don't understand what's happening because they're not informed.
Mm-hmm.
But all the
Yeah.
information's there. The shit has been going on forever.
You said that they were bringing it sounded like you said it, but I know that's not what you meant. You said you're like, oh, they're bringing it to like LA and New York. No, they were bringing it to Mena, Arkansas.
Yeah.
They're bringing it. That was their central drop point, and then it
Yeah.
would be distributed to there because it's just drop it in the middle, and then
Middle
everybody
of
could
fucking
pull out-
nowhere.
then they could fly it out to Chicago, Detroit, New York, San Francisco, Portland, like wherever. New York, Boston, like every major city. It's
Yeah,
not
and
the
who
only
was
way
governor
drugs were, but
at
that's
that
how
time?
but that's like, here's the thing. That's not the only way cocaine got in here. Cocaine was coming up on boats also. And it's
Through
also,
Miami and
but we're
piles.
literally only talking about the government, not like everybody in the government knew. President probably didn't know. Who knows?
Not
I
Reagan.
don't
He
know.
was
But you know who
out of the
didn't?
loop.
Yeah. But his vice president probably knew.
He knew he was running the shit.
Yeah, later became president, had a son become president, almost had his other son become president. Yeah, it seems like it's not a rigged election. Yeah, that we're only discussing this is how the government ran drugs into this country. That's what we're discussing right here. And it's fucking sad because then we the people go into jails. At the same time, you start seeing privatized prisons have become a thing. So they're like, oh, we'll bring drugs in, sell it to the nation, start to cripple and destroy the backbone of this country because you start locking people up for usually not using. It was selling drugs. They targeted that. They created the 1994 crime bill after this has all been in place for like a good 10, 15 years. It's been happening. Now they just destroy certain communities in this country by destabilizing the family. And we know the family is what can keep everything together. Having a male and a female presence in your life when you're growing up is extremely important to like not carrying too many extra traumas. It's just proven. And that's what they do. They made money by poisoning this country, then locking people up, destabilizing us as a nation. And here we stand today. Oh, we got this drug guy with fentanyl. Piss off.
Again, the way you laid it out. The whole process is so insidious from beginning to end because first they bring in the drugs and make the drug problem. Then they pass a crime bill to lock everyone up for the drug problem. Then they privatize the prisons where the people are getting locked up. And they make money on every leg of this whole caper. Like every step of this whole thing, they're making money on. But let's not forget our central point, though. It's like our intelligence agencies fund themselves on the drug trade. There was a great interview with a former Tijuana like special ops officer who was part of some small squad that was supposed to like push back against the cartels. And his understanding of the world, the guy has first-hand understanding of this dark little world. He was crystal clear. He said the DEA and the intelligence agencies of the US, they're the ones who run the cartels.
Mm-hmm.
They install the people who make the decisions. They run the shit. And again, it's one of these things like if you don't know this and you're curious about it, start digging because you're going to find nothing but affirmations about what we're saying here. This is all the world we live in. These intelligence agencies fund themselves this way. on top of the billions of dollars of taxpayer money, I guess. But that's
Remember
how the
though,
game works. This is all black budget operations. There's no accountability of this money. These agencies get to do whatever the fuck they want, and they fund themselves with money that's not accountable.
okay, so we're not blackpilling you. Listen, this whole podcast has literally been a stream of like, fuck, dude, these intelligence agencies are incredibly powerful. How do we stop it? And we're going to leave on our high note the same way we always do. And the way I want to look at that is we go back to the same word. We use this word quite often. It has to do with a book that we mentioned last week that we'll get into in the next podcast, not on the Patreon after this, but on the next podcast. And that is authority.
Outwitting the devil.
Well, that was the book, but authority.
That's
how you're going to beat the intelligence agencies. You have to have authority over your life. You have to take authority. If not, you're going to end up falling into this. It's unfortunate, and I'm going to try to be nice, but this mind-numbing control is what happens. You just believe what you're told. You trust the science. We got to do better than that. Okay, so it's not black pill. You can break out. You can go gold pill. Have, do a practice, meditate. Meditation's an amazing helper. Try to live a life through the natural law of man and take authority over yourself. And that's how we beat this.
Bro, I love it. And honestly, this isn't a black pill thing. If you want to know how empowering this is, look at the video of residents of South Central Los Angeles when they were questioning their local politicians about the CIA's involvement in the crack epidemic. Those people were fired up. Those people were angry. They were lit. They were demanding answers. And man, their souls were on fire. They were so passionate about what they were doing. That's not a black pill. Black pill is when you shut down and you go to bed. You get real knowledge about.
That's 1994-ish, I believe. And there was an former FBI head of Los Angeles.
He was the bureau chief of Los Angeles. Yes.
And his name was?
I can't remember right now.
I was hoping you'd remember. I can't remember. It's so good because it's not the names I keep having run through my head, and I usually just pull that up. I know it. But just check. Oh God,
I don't know.
We'll tell you after on the Patreon. We'll tell you
on the Patreon. You got to wait.
We're fired up. We're fired up. Happy Thanksgiving. What? Go.
All right. No, I was going to say, like, at that time in 1994, we were living in Southern California, and I was reading from the OC Weekly, one of those little like free newspapers you could pick up at any thrift store. And I was reading Gary Webb's reporting, and I would wait every week to see like the next one that came out. And I was like, holy shit, this guy is blowing the lid off it. And it got me lit up and passionate and wanting to know more. This is the path of knowledge. This is the world you live in. This is worth your time. I know it's 30 years ago, but it's still going on today. It's still going on today. When they rounded up this lackey from the San Diego Tijuana cartel, he was nothing but competition. He was just in the way of the people who run shit. And the people who run shit are your intelligence agencies, my friends. Start digging.
Peace out. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Catch you on the Patreon. I think I stop it here. Yes.